Okay, welcome back, grade 10s. I hope you all had a lovely long weekend. Say goodbye to all your hopes and dreams. Say goodbye to all your happy memories, because now we're starting the course. Oh, man. Okay, but rejoice, grade 10s. I actually love the grade 10 curriculum. It's very fun. Okay. You're looking at me like, wow, that's lame. You like grade 10. Okay. We're going to talk, this is just a precursor to your unit. Okay. Imperialism plays a big role in what we teach on this unit. There are things that I will adjust verbally in this slideshow. Okay. But this will give you some information to help you understand what we're going to do in the next couple of chapters and give you some context. Okay. Good? You understand? Okay. So we're going to talk about the new imperialism. So your grade 10 course focuses on globalization. Globalization is the movement of humans, of things, of ideas, of trade, transfer of knowledge, information, okay, interacting with different groups. A lot of that in recent history, and even prior to that, was done through imperialism, which is empire building, and we'll get more into detail on that. But just to give you some information, some background, your course focuses a lot on 1492 to about the 1900s. Okay. Would anyone like to take a guess why we started 1492? It's roughly that year. Anyone? Anyone like to take a guess? Or are you still filling out notes? You're still filling out notes, I can tell by the way you keep looking at your paper and board. Okay. My grade 9 course is so much better now. They don't have notes like this. So they just have a blank piece of paper and they fill out whatever they want. It's kind of nice. You'll be doing that in Unit 3, kids. Okay, Unit 1 and 2, the first 2 units, will have fill in the blank stuff, but later on I don't. Anyone want to take a guess? What happened in 1492? What's so different about 1492? Any thoughts? That's good. Otherwise, it'd be kind of weird if you're 400 years old and still stuck in grade 10.
Yeah.
Okay, we're talking about movement of people in this course. What could have occurred in 1492? Who do you think traveled from where to where? What was that? It was close.
I said Christopher Columbus.
Christopher Columbus. Excellent. I am blanking right now if he was the exact person we're referring to. But 1492 is the start of European voyages across the sea into Europe, right? Christopher Columbus is one of the main guys who catches a lot of heat, who, quite frankly, grade 10s didn't even step foot in North America. He went to some of the islands in the Caribbean and whatnot, and a little bit of South America, but he did not come to what is now known as Canada. Don't think he even stepped foot in what is known as America, right? So the course focuses on a very short, limited amount of history. And, because this slideshow, this PowerPoint of mine is quite old, it's very critical to kind of European movement around the world. Not that they did things perfectly, but the more you learn about history, the more you learn how horribly other people did it as well, and the fact that everyone was doing the same thing, okay? But imperialism was a driving force for Europeans. They wanted to create more empires. So maybe you've heard of things like the Roman Empire, okay? That's a great example of imperialism. The Mongolians had an empire as well. They had all this territory and land that they expanded across. China had various dynasties as well, and they were kind of empire-ish, although they mostly just dealt with the particular area that they're in. Okay? But the building of an empire can be done through the domination or control by a stronger country, particularly, let's say, a stronger military, and a weaker country. Right? We'll look at other ways that this can happen as well. So empire building more specifically happened between 1760 1914, but around the 1700s. So between 1492 and the mid 1700s, a lot of these European nations were still exploring. I believe eventually in one of our notes packages, we look at one of the conferences where European kings and militaries, basically they got together and they split up different parts of the world, parts of Africa, and started controlling certain areas. Okay. So we will go into these phrases, or these words here: colonies, spheres of influence, and protectorates. We'll look at what those mean. Okay. And there are many reasons why European nations did this and why they were so successful. There's a book out there, I haven't started reading it, but it's on my list, called Guns, Germs, and Steel, which looks at this occurrence in history. Why were Europeans able to come here and conquer so much? Some of what I explained, I don't know if I explained this to your group or the grade 10, but when we start looking more closely at a map of the world, I'll explain some ideas there as well. Okay. I'm going to continue on. Also, all of these PowerPoints are now in your Google Classroom as well. So if you want to look at them when you go home. Okay. So within imperialism, within building an empire, because you can go out, you can conquer a land, you can take all their valuable resources, right? So this would be similar to me coming to your house, kicking down your door, beating you up, and then raiding your fridge, right? Or finding the money you hide under your pillow or your bed, wherever you hide your money. I take all your good stuff and then I leave, right? That's a form of imperialism, right? But colonization, which could be an extension of what they do, is if I were to leave someone there, right? And then maybe leave a group of people, a colony, and they start establishing, my rule if I'm an empire, right? So settlements outside the mother countries. So Canada itself was colonized, right? British people, French people, they sailed across the sea and then they started living and staying in Canada, in North America, and South America as well. But those are different groups of people. So within an empire, every person, every country has a sphere of influence. Sphere of influence is also a concept you look at again in Social 30 when you talk about ideologies. But when we're looking at empires, so the Roman Empire was quite massive and it had a very large sphere of influence. And sphere of influence is essentially a place where you can affect and impact. So they may not necessarily, the empire might not necessarily be positioned in this country, but they still are able to influence them, put a lot of pressure. It could be two neighboring countries, two neighboring kingdoms. Okay, think about how many of you have ever had to share like an armrest? You've been to the theaters, right? So you got to figure out like whose elbows are going to go where, who's in front, who's in back. Maybe some of you opt to just have your arms like this in front of you because you don't want to make someone else uncomfortable, have some conflict, right? So in that situation, you have your own sphere of influence. It's your arms. How much are you going to act out, right? So these countries, these empires have the same thing. So they can affect and impact the people around them. So a protectorate would be a country, as it says, that has its own government, its policies, so its actual laws are guided by the conquering power. Okay. So the example given here, military protection from aggressors. So that would be essentially like hiring a bodyguard on the condition that the person who you hire that bodyguard from gets a say in how your government works to an extent, right? What policies you have in place. And so people might give up their freedom for safety, for protection. And the reason why you might do that is because, well, it's better to give up certain small amounts of freedoms than to be lost to another conquering group. And then you lose everything, right? And some people make that decision, other people don't make that decision. And that can really matter, depend person to person, country to country. move on. So a couple of different reasons that this course emphasizes for imperialism, and would probably be true historically as well. But economic reasons, so expanding your empire somewhere else because that other place has more resources, more money. It could be political influence as well. So just being able to say that you have more control over certain areas, you have more influence, you have more territory, gives you political power. Cultural reasons, although that's kind of complicated, but there may be certain cultures that have more of a conquering mindset. Okay, so for example, the Mongolians, they just went out and conquered people. They were a little bit more nomadic. They didn't have settlements and homes as much as they would maybe move around. Okay. The Japanese people were very fearful of the Mongols because every now and then they would cross the sea and invade Japan and try to conquer Japan, and quite frankly didn't. The Great Wall of China, how many of you are familiar with that? So they essentially built that to protect and defend themselves from an enemy. Okay. There could be humanitarian reasons as well behind going over and taking over a country. Could be religious reasons as well, if you're trying to spread your faith, your belief system, and have more people fall under that as well.